All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Bleav in Bills. Adam Bonini, WGRZ TV. You know Sal Majorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. And if you're a Bills fan, you know the guy, the man in the middle. Former offensive lineman John Fina, now associated with Bleav Network and Overreaction Buffalo, covering this team, along with another former offensive lineman for the Bills, Jerry Ostrowski. John, great to see you.
Adam, thanks for having me. Yeah, Sal, good to see you guys.
It's been a while, John. Been a while. In fact, I'm in a building here. I don't think this building was built when you were here, was it?
Oh, come on. I'm not that old. I got to practice in the barn. I got the barn time.
All right, good. Of course, the $25 million weight room wasn't in here yet when you were here.
No, it was a decent weight room. It was a nice facility. Anything was better than what we were doing underneath the stadium in the old locker room and the old strength room. So everything was a step up. It's a first class spot now. And it's obvious it's first class because, can you believe it? People are clamoring to get to Buffalo to play for my beloved Bills.
And you guys you overcame all that and had plenty of success, John. That's for sure.
That's right. It's all about culture, quality of players, respect, and, wanting to play for your brother, your coach, your family, your city.
All right.
Hey,
so
John,
you joined. Go ahead,
Adam. Go ahead.
Interesting that you mentioned that. And maybe we can kind of start there. You obviously joined in the midst of the Super Bowl era, played in two of them. But in terms of the culture and what it was and led to all of that success for the team then, I know it's a different era now and teams are built differently, but do you see a lot of those same characteristics with this team?
Well, without the opportunity to be in the locker room like you fellas get to hang out with the boys like the media did when I was there, it's hard to really say. But I think that social media can reveal quite a bit of truth about what's happening in various locker rooms, various sports. I think all of the earmarks point to it's the right culture. It's the right people. There's clearly enough. We're serious football guys. We got to win. We got to improve. But there's enough levity and brotherhood that ekes out that the community can understand this is a real group of men who respect each other. And I think you don't see teams really get to championships under duress with a lot of people banging heads. You'll see occasionally you get a superstar who wants to make it about him. But I think beyond that, behind the curtain, there's still that core group who is all about the mission and the brotherhood of achieving Super Bowl victory. I think we have that here, cautiously optimistic that it takes us to the Super Bowl, but I'm certain it lives in that locker room.
I was going to ask you, because in this locker room, you're right, there is a really good vibe this year. And I've noticed, I'm here an awful lot. I've noticed this year, it's probably the best vibe surrounding a team in the McDermott era. They just have the right group of guys in this locker room. They did a really good job in the offseason, bringing in some free agents who were kind of guys who flew under the radar. And they've come in here and they've really had important roles all season long. And I wanted to ask you, we know who some of the big leaders are here, Josh Allen, Von Miller, but there's several guys that kind of fly under the radar that have had a really impactful presence in this locker room. Who were some of the guys when you played? Again, we know who the big leaders were, but who were some of the guys that you on the inside would say were guys that we wouldn't have thought were really key instrumental players on those Bills teams back then?
Well, I think that's a really great question. And if I look back on those days, I think the important thing is that you don't stifle anybody's style of leadership and that you foster any which way they want to lead. So some guys will lead with, a lot of volume, a lot of talk, a lot of excitement. And those guys are the easy ones to identify. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then you have guys who you might call role players, but they lead by example. They're the backbone of the locker room in a more quiet way. Those are guys like Mark Kelso, Mark Pike, Pete Metzelaars, a string of guys on the offensive line. They're really just more or less towing the line, making sure that the fabric doesn't tear apart when things go sideways, and things always go sideways. And, those are the guys that just like in the background, hey guys, hey, we're on a mission. That was a bad loss. That was a bad performance. How are we going to rebound? And they're steady eddies. They're not too high. They're not too low. They probably don't gamble a lot because it doesn't satisfy, either metric of being elated or totally blown out of the water. So we had a variety of those guys at every position, and they led by example. Be on time, work hard, deliver in the games, don't make mental errors. And you don't have to be a guy that shouts from the top of your lungs, that's screaming on the sideline. But sure enough, you got to have those guys too.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at the culture that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have built, I mean, that's high on the list of accomplishments, and it's an impressive list. But what they've done during the time here, and as Sal said, this may be the best example of it, and specifically moving on from Stephon Diggs in the offseason, everyone wondered about that, but it's pretty clear that the dynamic changed in a fairly positive way for this team. The results certainly speak to that. Quick word from the sponsor here. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. The largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA, NHL, college basketball, and UFC. Head to BetOnline today, and don't forget, use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV. You get a welcome bonus on your first deposit. All right, Bills, Denver Broncos Wild Card matchup coming up Sunday, 1 o'clock in Orchard Park. And, John, I would ask you for your general take on that matchup. And as a former offensive lineman, when you look at that Denver defensive front, 63 sacks, franchise record, all of that, kind of within that context, how much of a challenge does this team present?
Okay, loaded question, Adam. All right, I got a lot to unpack here. So first and foremost, what I would say, and if you come on the Hump Day Hotline tonight with me and Jay Spencer King sitting in for Joe Miller Wired, this was the point I was developing in my head, and I'll give it to you early on. I have never expected the Bills to be a start fast, lead fast team. It's not our DNA this year. And I've been thinking about that. And I always want to say start fast. But in reality, having that expectation is just not smart. But what I think the Bills can do to slow down the Denver defense is, whether they score on that first drive or not, it needs to be extended drives. They need to hold the ball 8 to 12 plays, whether that ends in a field goal or a punt. We all want touchdowns. Everybody wants touchdowns. But I think the important thing is you have to keep the ball. You have to feel the confidence and know that we are just a play away. Because when you go 3 and out, you don't feel like you're just a play away. And desperation, anger, those types of things start to creep in. So I would say start the game, hold the ball, move the ball, punt or not. Just don't start giving the ball back to Denver. Secondly, I think that Brady is going to have some designed ways to break the rush. And what do I mean by that? It's one thing to drop back and have Josh find a lane and just rush, right? We've seen that. But I think we need to figure out a way, whether it's by boot, half roll, or play action of some sort, designed run, where we kind of break their mentality of, holy cow, he got away this quick. Right? We don't want to give them success early. And I think you can design that. There are plays to do that. And clearly we win the turnover battle. We get 100 yards combined rushing, and our defense can get, a couple of key stops. The Bills win the game.
Hey, John, tell me from an offensive lineman standpoint. Now, this team, the Broncos are going to come in here. We know about the sack, 63, but they're also the third highest blitz rate team in the NFL. So from an offensive line standpoint, how difficult does that make the week for these guys, trying to figure out where those blitzes are going to come from? I mean, they do a lot of simulated stuff too, where they fake it and drop out. How much more difficult is the week for the offensive lineman when you're playing a team like this?
Well, you guys know all about analytics, right? So somebody for a very long time, very late hours, has been staying up and cataloging every pressure that the Broncos will bring. And if they have repeat type pressures, it gets stacked ranked by percentage of the rush, by location on the field, by down and distance, right? I mean, that's the real reason we have artificial intelligence, I hope, to make football better. But by and large, what you're going to do is you're going to take what we think are the biggest threats by virtue of what they do, by virtue of what we've been susceptible to in the past, which hasn't been a lot. And we're going to schematically run those, it used to be on paper, the drawings. We're going to review those. And then we have blitz pickup segment in practice where the Bills are going to work on our expectation for their most common pressures. Okay. My concern is just that we don't start getting the running game going. The number one thing that slows pressure from defenses is the run game. Okay. So let's establish the run game. Let's get in 2nd and 7 or less. Let's get in 3rd and 4 or less. And I think that's the number one way to break that problem. Number 2, Alec Anderson's doing a terrific job. James Cook had a pickup on blitz a couple of weeks ago that I highlighted on the Off Tackle Show with John Fina. And I review film on there. If you guys want to learn a little bit about offensive line play, you're always welcome. So my concern about picking it up isn't great. My concern is a lack of success, that we get a greater frequency of it, because then you start to make mistakes.
John, does it seem like this offense in particular, I mean, it's very interesting the points you raised, but I mean, we're talking historic NFL balance here. First team with 30-plus passing touchdowns and 30-plus rushing touchdowns, and you have a quarterback who's clearly reached another level this year. I mean, part of me says, go ahead, blitz, and have Josh, how well-equipped is Josh to make them pay for that, exploit it in this passing game in particular. I mean, I think, I know there's with the pressure that Denver brings, that's a concern, but what this offense has done, to your point, from a balance perspective, I mean, they're in a place where they can make the most of that, I think, don't you?
I 100% agree, but I am also of the opinion, I grew up in Walt Corey's defense early in my career in Buffalo, and I hated it. I would rather die by the sword, die quickly, than death by 1,000 cuts. And I think Denver will bring that same attitude that has delivered success for them to this game. And it is true that when you bring pressure, you are susceptible to the big play. Now, you might argue, if you're Denver, beyond Khalil Shakir, who's the guy that's really delivering the big play for the Buffalo Bills? This is a smart move in our favor to bring pressure. I would love to see them bring pressure, because I think that Josh escapes very well, even when he's hung on a little bit. He has escapability. But the thing, and you talked about balance to this offense, complementary, which everybody can't stand to hear anymore, is I will say, beyond the fact that Josh Allen is older, he's more mature, he's very smart, he's very calculating. I think the Joe Brady addition, if you watch and you see the layering of run game in conjunction with Cromer, who's probably has a big, heavy hand in the run game, the layering and development and evolution throughout the year from play to play to play has been extraordinary. And I think Joe Brady is really the number one reason why we're seeing the success, why we're seeing the balance. And nothing makes an offensive line happier than running the football. So we can get those 3 terrific running backs going. I think our chances of success are, beyond 60%.
I wanted to ask you too, John, because one of the things that I'm looking at as I try to figure out the matchup, they've got Surtain, who is he's the best cornerback in football. But the thing I think is important for Bills fans to understand is that he's at his very best when he's taken the other team's best receiver away from the offense. This Bills team doesn't have that guy. And I think one of the keys to this game is that Surtain only goes in the slot maybe 10% of his snaps all year. The Bills have got Khalil Shakir in the slot. If they leave Surtain outside to deal with Coleman or Cooper, I think this is a game that Khalil Shakir could really do some damage. Give me your perspective on that line of thinking.
Oh, I hate to break my arm, pat myself on the back, but being out here in the West, we watch a lot of Mountain West and a lot of Pac-12 football. So while you guys were already hungover and asleep at 2:00 in the morning, I'm watching Boise State, and I'm watching this kid play, and I'm saying to myself, I hope my Bills get Khalil Shakir. And I've believed in this kid from his junior year of college or second year before coming out. You're absolutely right. this is a game-breaking kid, not because he's going to go 60 yards for a touchdown, but he's going to turn a 10-yard touch into a 22-yard gain, or he's going to turn an 8-yard touch into a 30-yard gain. Big in this game will be opening up the center of the field. If you're going to bring pressure, the seam routes, Knox, Kincaid, Shakir finding the soft spot are going to be huge. You'll get the occasional fade if you're one-on-one on the outside, but Amari Cooper has shown he will go up for contested catches. He will battle at the high point for the ball. Keon Coleman does the same thing. So I am very optimistic about our core. And you say, all right, who do we take away? That's the beauty of what's been going on. Maybe the inherited beauty or the unintended consequence of what we have with this wide receiver room is you don't know who it's going to be week to week, who Josh is going to connect with and make the star of that week. And I think that bodes well for us, especially in a pressure type of defense.
Interesting that you bring up Kincaid, John, because I was going to mention too, and Sal and I have talked, that this is an opportunity for him. I feel like that he has the potential to have a very big game and play a very important role looking towards Sunday. Wanted to ask you about, this MVP debate, right? It's the popular question. It's the popular debate among NFL fans. I mean, I think Sal and I both feel like Josh is it. And people bring up stats or whatever, and
sure.
and taking nothing away from Lamar Jackson, but I think Allen is in ways more valuable to this team because some of those numbers are down, right? Because he's functioned within the offense. I guess just generally, is Josh Allen the most valuable player, and maybe why, depending upon your answer.
Right. Well, I'll start with my caveat. I don't pay attention to it. I think it's a garbage conversation. I'm totally disinterested. Josh won't care if he's hoisting the Lombardi. That's number one. Not interested. Number two, what are the rules? Because last year, Josh had better numbers and Lamar won it. And I think Lamar's a brilliant football player. I love watching him play. I wish he were in the NFC. So this year, Lamar has the better numbers, but Josh is the MVP because of what he does for his team and how he elevates everybody else. So I don't know what the rules are. I'm on a slippery slope, or I'm on a pad with the frog, right? I don't know. The water's unsettled. I think it's uninteresting to me because there's no rules, because it's either metrics or feel, but it can't be both, and you can't alternate year after year. Blah, not interested.
I agree, 100%.
I like
John.
that answer. I like that answer.
I'm so sick of this conversation. I think it's complete bullshit. Tired of it. Let's move on. They're both great players. Exactly. I don't care who wins the damn thing. You're absolutely right. Josh doesn't care either. He wants to win the Super Bowl ring. And
Give me the Lombardi.
That's right. Lamar feels the same way too. He wants to win.
I'm sure he does. This is a cute little thing, that you hang up in your office one day that says MVP in it. Right there, I am.
Yeah, there.
But I would have rather won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. I guess let's switch sides of the ball here. In terms of this game and of the postseason in general, how much a concern is this defense for you, this Buffalo defense?
Yeah, I think our corners are playing fantastic football right now. I think we have backup corners in Ingram and Elam that can be serviceable, that play well. Taron Johnson he's not just a defender. I feel like he's a weapon. The safety play has been, I guess, a little bit of a roller coaster, a little up and down. I'm a fan of Taylor Rapp. He had a big gaffe in the last game, but I almost think good. Now you might have a little edge. You don't want to look at that film, guys. I don't know if you've ever been in a film room and you did something really shitty and the coach just rewinds it like 5 times in a row. And there's silence in the room and you're just like, God, get it over with. And then they say, what the hell were you thinking here? And you just have no answer. So I like DeMar Hamlin. I think he's playing fair. I think he's playing good. I think Rapp's playing okay. I think Bishop, this could be a really good chance for him to come in and make some big plays. I think the time is near for him for that. My concern about the defense has always been the front four. We set the edge pretty well on run between Epinesa and Rousseau. But they're not game wreckers in the pass early in the game like I want. Like I want to see some of our guys like Bruce Smith who in the first quarter all of a sudden breaks free and changes the nature of the game. Those are my concerns. I think our linebacking core is reasonably healthy now. I've been a huge fan of Bernard since everybody had a panic attack that he was going to be the starter. I think Milano is actually instinctively playing extremely well. I think his body is catching up. Dorian Williams is a gem, right? They just need to be stout and not give up the big play. They contain Bo Nix and somebody drop him for 1 yard gains when he scrambles. He does really well with his legs. We need takeaways. 1 or 2 takeaways more than Denver, we win the game. But by and large, people get freaked out about the Bills defense because it bends a lot between the 30s or the 25s, but it's shocking how stout it is inside the 25. I don't like it. I don't like watching it. It doesn't make me feel good. But if they continue to do it, it will be successful.
Here's my worry, John, about the defense. They've got 32 takeaways, which is awesome. You can't rely on takeaways. There's a little bit of random luck involved there. Do you realize the Bills forced the fewest punts in the NFL this year? Only 49 times. That's what worries me. In the playoffs especially, you've got to be able to be, a defense that can stop teams without the takeaways. And that's what concerns me a little bit. And this all points back to one biggest problem: third down defense.
Right.
If you have any idea that you could share with us why this team has struggled so much on third down, and in particular, third and long, it's been almost absurd. Some of the third and longs they've given up. Do you see that as a problem area, and why do you think that's happening?
Well, statistically, I'd want to know first how many drives teams have had against the Bills for our punt rate being the worst in the league. We do have extended long drives. There might be fewer drives per game by the opposition. I don't know those stats. Secondly, in addressing the third and long situation, it's curious you say that. You must have been watching the Off Tackle Show with John Fina for a very long time now, or the post-game show with Joe Miller and Jerry.
I've been writing about it for a long time, I'll say that.
Because
I write about it every week.
You will know that for the past 15 weeks, when I go down the team stats, the first thing I'm looking at is third down conversion rate. And I want to be above 50%, and I want them to be in the 40s or 30s. And we do struggle with that. By and large, I think what you've seen is we've had some issues of health at the linebacker spot, right? We've had Terrell Bernard out. We've had Dorian Williams out. We're just getting Matt Milano back. And Spector is now out. So there's been a little bit of shakiness there. And there's 2 things that go into bringing pressure from the middle of the field at the linebacker position. The first is the plan, right? Do you have the people behind you at the safety position, at the lockdown corner position that we can expose the middle of the field? That's number 1, right? Number 2 is injury. Like, do we have the guys? Do we want to bring guys up into that mess and make pressure? And the third is there's a bit of an art to coming through the A and B gaps when you're a linebacker off the ball. There is a pass rush component to rushing a center or a guard when you're a linebacker. And if you don't have the experience and you don't have the health, then what you're doing is you're lining guys up on the line of scrimmage and wasting them, right? And if you also feel like you have the game under control, the Bills have had the game under control a number of times this year, you don't bring pressure. So you're challenged to get technically strong at it. How's that for an answer?
That is. And I think you're right. The game script definitely plays a part of why their numbers aren't great. But what worries me are the games that have not been blowouts, that have been good games, and they have just given up so many of these big plays. Now, they've still gone on and won most of those games, but
right. But that's also McDermott. Sal, that's McDermott, right? I mean, that's McDermott. We tend not to bring a lot of pressure. We're in the bottom 20% of the league with the amount of pressure we bring. I don't love it myself. Again, I am a live by the sword, die by the sword. I don't want to die by 1,000 cuts type of person. I want to get after them. I want to put Bo Nix out there in space. That's just the way I want to run. That's the way I want to run it.
All right. So, John, you just brought up the last point that I had that I wanted to ask you about, and that's Sean McDermott, right? And Vic Carucci and I had Sal Palantonio from ESPN on our Monday night show, Sports Talk Live Buffalo, and the point came up, and Sal Pal was straight on. I mean, this is a huge postseason for Sean McDermott. With all the success they've had in the 5 straight division titles, there's the game management issues and those types of things. Here he is going against a rookie quarterback, right? At home, has the MVP at quarterback for his team. I mean, there's that history to consider, and it's something Sal and I have talked about. And I like to think with all that they've done that he's able to overcome this, but I'm not willing to kind of set it aside either, because, I mean, things have gotten away from them in the postseason in the past, and so much of that has fallen at Sean McDermott's feet. How concerned are you? What's your take on that narrative as you look at this coaching staff entering this postseason?
Is the question about his job security? Is that what you want my comment on?
No. I don't think there's any issue with his job security. I'm talking the question is this the head coach that can make the most of this quarterback and win a championship in the postseason?
Right. We see gaffes all over the league at that, making decisions in the final moments. I'm not happy. Of course, I see ours more than anybody else's because I'm a Bills fan. I'm a homer, for God's sakes. Andy Reid won the NFC, or he was close 4 or 5 years in a row when he was with Philadelphia. Look, every time I hear this was a screw up by Sean McDermott, I would say 60% of the time I hear the opposing comment, well, he did it the right way and it didn't work. But it was a questionable call, a game management call, and because it didn't go our way, he's wrong all the time, right? So you're sort of in this argument of exclusion. Even if he calls it right and we have a bad result, it still gets lumped into the bad call category. I like McDermott. I think what he's done here is absolutely chimerical with the team that he's put together. A 17-year drought, a team that I didn't watch for 6 or 7 years while I was raising my kids, who I can now proudly say that's my team, who I would trade our drought for, a few other teams who've droughted for 5 years and they're struggling. So I'm a huge fan. And I think there's a player perspective on understanding how hard it is to last the season and be healthy, to prepare for a game, to execute game plan, to win a football game, knowing that the ball is not round and it bounces all the hell all over the place and luck goes both ways. And sometimes it's really shitty, but I am proud that we got McDermott. I love this team. I think that all coaches get a lot of scrutiny, and they should. They make a ton of money, scrutinize the living hell out of them. If he doesn't like something, fire him. If you like it, keep him. We're not curing cancer or feeding the world.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it much better there.
Yep. Excellent way to end it. And John, thank you for your time and your insight today. Again, here's another one, Sal. Here's another one who's gone on to, look at this multimedia. You can remember some of those interviews with you in the locker
Another
room.
guy that I used to walk up to at his locker, and he would basically give me the finger without giving me the finger. Now he's in the media.
I'll tell you, I probably would have been a lot better nowadays, and here's why. And this is what players did not love. And you can't go backwards in time. You guys can't fix the times when you were total jerks 98% of the time. Mm-hmm. But what the issue is, typically the only access the fan and the world had to athletes was what came through the radio, what came out in the print media, and what came out on ESPN or your local news. And there was no control for the player. And now I can promote myself as the type of person that I actually am on Instagram or X or Facebook or wherever I want to do that. And there's basically a foil against, and I was kidding with you guys, but some of writers, and I won't name any names, really made a career out of being total pricks. So if things were bad and you were concerned about how your soundbite would be represented in the media, then why give a soundbite?
It's a fair question. Yeah.
I understand.
I mean,
but now you could post this and say Fina's a expletive.
No.
And then people can go to my X account and see all the great things. I follow 500 high school and college football players just because I love seeing what people are doing. I follow nature accounts, what have you, right? And people know, well, that's not true. But in those days, in the 90s, you really had no way to push back and say, hey, I'm a decent guy. I'm just working my ass off here.
I remember you being a coffee nerd, right? Weren't you a big coffee guy?
Yes, I still cook. I still brew my own coffee, grind my own beans, and now I do it because, dear God, you could go broke going buying coffee, right?
That's true.
We have a coffee machine now. Of course, you have to operate it through an app, but it gave us our yearly numbers, and it told us how much money we saved against buying coffee drinks at Pete's or Starbucks or whatever, and it was shocking how much money we keep in our pockets.
I spend $4 a day on coffee, for Christ's sake.
He does. And you complain about it. And all you do is complain about it. That's for sure. It's great catching up, John, really. I mean, we look back so fondly on those days. We were all kind of a pain in the ass in our own special way, I think.
Guys, right? You know what? I don't harbor any ill will, but and I love those days. Nothing. I mean, the few things in my life are better than having been a Buffalo Bill, and they're all family, right? And my Bills family was family, and now I'm a member of the Bills Mafia family. And I'm not prejudicially, hanging anything against you guys for doing the job that you did back then. But I also feel a little bit like, why should I participate? I mean, everybody remembers when Mitt Romney ran for the presidency and he pretended to be nice. And then when he ran for president, he got eviscerated anyway for being a nice guy. So why not just shut up and do your thing? So that's what I decided to do. And eventually my career ended because I ran out of talent and health, and that's how it goes. I loved it, though. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Total respect. And you know what? It's great getting caught up. And that's I think Sal and I both love this podcast thing because we're able to kind of reconnect with some of the guys we covered back in the day. And it's a whole different perspective and all of it. And you're doing great. Overreaction, Buffalo. I mean, I don't think it surprises either one of us that you're having the success you are and bringing what you do from a content standpoint in the media.
I love it too. I mean, it's been a great outlet for a lot of people. I think by and large, on my show, I break down plays. You learn about offensive line play. And I think one great thing about social media and guys like Brian Baldinger, who's just incredible, is people know more about football. They understand more about football than they ever did. And I think that it's the best game there is. It's better than hockey. I don't even know. Do they still play baseball? The NBA is garbage. I can't stand the NBA. It's a bad product, although I do love college basketball. It's the greatest game on the planet. It is. Technically, evolution-wise, personality-wise, grit, and the whole thing. It has everything.
Yeah, it does.
I agree, man.
And
thanks for being with us, brother.
Hey, go Duke Blue Devils. Go Bills. Guys, have me on anytime. I love being here.
Hey, John, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Bills Broncos, 1 o'clock, Wild Card Weekend Sunday, Highmark Stadium. For Sal Majorana, I'm Adam Benini. John Fina, thank you, and thank you for being with us here on Bleav in Bills.
Love it.